Welcome back to my channel. As always, I'm so glad that you're here. Listen, I know the setup is different. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of vintage YouTube days where it was just like you'll be watching your favorite YouTuber, and there'll be one video they'll be at their house, the next video they'll be on the road, the next video, you know, now everything is aesthetically pleasing, everything has to be the same way. I literally tried to film this video all weekend, like all yesterday. I got home late. I was pushing up against the time because y'all know now with the whole time change, everything gets dark at 3 o'clock. So by the time I had a good shot and I was in the flow, it was dark outside, and then my battery died, and I was just like, listen, I'm just gonna take my lunch break to film this video because I really want to film this video. Today we are going to be talking about the whole art of introducing your single friends to your other single friends, what I like to call old-fashioned matchmaking. So over the weekend I had a video go viral where I was talking about how a lot of times our generation, we're not good at that. You know what I'm saying? We don't really do well with introducing our single friends to our other single friends and putting our friends on, you know? And how that came about was last week I had a conversation with one of my coworkers, and I was telling my coworkers I usually do well with meeting women and vibing and connecting with women that do not live here. Usually if I do connect with a girl that lives in my city, I don't even know, like it just be weird, you know what I'm saying? But I am no stranger to meeting a girl who do not live here. I'm no stranger to long distance relationships, situationships, connections, vibes, crushes, and all that, you know what I'm saying? My last girlfriend, I lived in Ohio, she lived way out in Reno, Nevada, right? If you follow me on TikTok and you follow me on Instagram, then you know I literally just came back from, you know, seeing a girl in Charlotte, and you know we decided that you know it wasn't very suitable for neither one of us. But that's not what we're here to discuss. So I was telling my coworker, I was just like, you know what I'm saying, like I'm gonna take that as a sign that I am going to give my all into making an effort to actually meeting a girl and making it work with a girl that live in my city. So I was like, the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to actively get back on dating apps, and specifically I'm going to try BOK. I am already on Hinge, but every time I get on Hinge, it's always like they will literally show me 3 women and be like, oh, you didn't see everybody that you need to see today, you know what I'm saying? And even if I get on Facebook dating, they'll show me women that live 800 miles away from me, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, well, let me try Black. Now I've tried Black like pre-pandemic or something, and I downloaded BOK, and literally 3 hours in, I didn't even make it a whole day. 3 hours in, I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. I just couldn't do it, right? So I made a TikTok video last week where I was just, you know, telling TikTok, like, I feel like dating apps could make a comeback. Now, I really don't use dating apps. Dating apps really don't work for me, and I'll make a whole nother video talking about why. So I did a TikTok video just talking about how I feel like dating apps could make a comeback, and I start to talk about, you know, reasons why I feel like dating apps failed. And so I go through the 3 reasons, and basically the number 1 reason was I just felt like, you know, dating apps could be a form of passive dating, meaning like you'll be on a dating app. Have you ever matched with somebody and y'all just be having a normal conversation of how are you, what do you do for work, oh, I see this on your profile, and if you say one little thing that they do not like, whether it's where you work, what type of food you like, what neighborhood you live in, you will go back to that conversation thread and they gone. They didn't unmatch with you, no announcement, no nothing. And I was saying on TikTok, like a lot of times, you know, that could be seen as passive, you know, because if you were in the real world and you go on a date with somebody, and let's say you at the dinner table and they say something that you necessarily don't vibe with, like you just can't get up and leave. You know, now some of y'all might be a little tacky, but you just won't get up and leave and be like, I'm out of here. You know what I'm saying? You will stay, you know what I'm saying? You'll hear them out, and then a few days later, you might text that person and be like, you know what? This ain't the move for me or my future children, you know? And then you out of there, you know what I'm saying? And then number 2, I said the reason why a lot of dating apps failed and are failing is because of casual dating. And what I meant by casual dating in that sense is mismatch intentions. And I said this in the video before, like, dating apps, in my opinion, my unpopular opinion, is dating apps should be for dating. Like those people that get on dating apps that be like, oh, I'm on here, you know, looking for friends. I just moved to here in Nashville, and I just moved here to Oklahoma, and I'm just trying to find some new friends. And I do understand that dating apps have the friend option, but if you are actually on the option where it says dating, like your intention should be to date, not to make friends, not to make connections, not, and I even go as far as to say not even to network. So I was talking about how, you know, a lot of dating apps have mismatched intentions. Then number 3, I talked about the reason why a lot of dating apps failed was because of a lack of commitment to communication. Just the whole game of like, you didn't match with me, I didn't match with you, you got the notification, I got the notification, but all of a sudden when I go to message you, it's like, oh, I didn't see your message, oh, I'm not really on here that much. And then you reply 6 days later and like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see your message, I'm not really on here that much. Yeah, it's just like the games, you know what I'm saying? And so I made that video on TikTok and basically everybody was agreeing. Everybody came to the general consensus that dating in real life is king. And I stand by that. Like, I feel like I do much better with dating, with approaching women, with interacting with women, with shooting my shot, with communication in person. Like, I love old-fashioned dating, right? So everybody in the comments was just saying like, yes, bring back, you know, old-fashioned dating, bring back dating in real life. And then one girl made a comment that set all this off, and she said, bring back introductions. And I was like, yes. So I get on TikTok and I make a video just talking about how, I make a short video, of course, talking about how our generation, we don't do that. You know what I'm saying? We don't introduce our single friends to other single friends. And that video took off. It just is almost like at 90,000 views or something like that. It took off, it went viral, and everybody in the comments was just agreeing, like, bring back introductions, bring back introductions. And I was just like, I just kind of wanted to do, you know, bring this conversation to YouTube just for a little broader conversation. Like, you would be amazed at how so many people were open to the fact of being introduced, like putting your friends on and saying, yo, I got my homegirl over here, she's beautiful, she a good person, yo, I'm saying, I got my man's over here, like, he's a good dude. And like, we don't do that. Like, we don't do that. Now, when I did a little bit of research yesterday, I ran across like 3 articles that said since 2022, the #1 way that married couples have met have been through dating apps. And I was like, oh, well, it's working for somebody. Dating apps don't work for me, but it's working for somebody. So I don't know what that uptick, you know, come from, but it's working with somebody. But it still said that the second greatest way that couples meet is through mutual friends, is through community. And so I did a video just talking about how a lot of times our generation don't do that, and I feel like the older generation do. Though that is something that the older generation, they just do well. Like, if you ever worked a job, if you ever been to church, if you ever, I don't know, been on a bus with anybody with gray hair and a cane, they go look at you like, baby, how old you is? Okay, my daughter is about your age. Now, I'm just gonna tell you, she got about 3 kids. But I just feel like you would be, like, I'm telling you, older people, they eat with this. Like, older people will always try to put young people together. And I did say on TikTok, like, they don't always get like the physical attraction and the compatibility right, you know what I'm saying? But when it comes to the effort to try to match up a young person and a young person, they eat with this every time. And I feel like because, you know, as they get older, of course, they recognize the need for compatibility as opposed to somebody, you know, being tall or having a big booty or, you know, having a certain amount of money. They're just like, you know, okay, you're a good person, he's a good person, y'all need to get together. You know what I'm saying? But older people, they really do a good job with the whole matchmaking aspect. And I feel like it's because back then that's all they had. You know, not just with matchmaking, when it comes to like getting somebody a job or reviewing a restaurant, they didn't have social media or, you know, those digital outlets. So everything was word of mouth. And so the conversation on that viral TikTok just began to continue about why our generation don't do it. And I kept seeing this particular narrative of people saying like, oh, the reason why our generation, why we don't put our single friends on with other single people or why we don't introduce our single friends to, you know, other single people is because, you know, people don't want to see you happy and people are jealous and people want to be the only ones in love. And you know what? I thought about this. I don't know how true that is. I really can attest to that because the married people, usually married people and older people, usually a lot of times they take the cake for trying to play matchmaker. Even my married friends, you know, I have 2 married friends in Atlanta. They're married to each other. And years ago, this is like 2017, 2018, I remember going out with my boy in Atlanta. He was like, hey man, you know, my girl bringing a girl for you. And I was like, 100%. Even my married friends in Louisville, you know what I'm saying? They have, hit me up like, oh, yo, what do you think about this particular girl? Usually married people, they do well with that. Even when it comes to, Russell Wilson and Sierra, how they put Normani on with DK Metcalf, and how they just, facilitated their whole meeting, and just seeing how, they meshed well together. Usually married people, at least I would think so, they do well with that. So I really can't attest to that. But I saw that narrative a lot in the comments of like, one girl even said like, if one of your friends was to go out with a guy and she realized that he wasn't good enough for her, she experienced where the girlfriend wouldn't want her to get with him because, they would try to block, you know what I'm saying? I don't know nothing about that life, you know what I'm saying? But one of the main reasons why I feel like our generation just do not do well with putting our single friends on and introducing our single friends is because of the rise in individualism in our generation. And I'm not even talking about individualism just as it relates to dating, but I'm talking about individual just overall in every aspect you can think of. Like, let's take work, for example. You know what I'm saying? Like, see these TikToks where people praise, like, I go to work and I don't even say good morning to my coworkers. I'm the quiet coworker. And it's just like this pride in being, avoided and stand off. And I get it. Like, you got to be careful, especially in certain avenues that you work, not to, make friends at work, but just decent human interaction. There's nothing wrong with that. Like the jobs I've worked, every job I've always worked, I made great friends. You know what I'm saying? When I wanted to step out and started to do music outside of church, and I started to have R&B gigs, it was my coworkers that would come to shows. They would come to, my open mic nights. They would call me like, yo, where you at? Like, they were the ones that really encouraged me to step out. So, but I do understand that it has a lot to do with, intentions about, if you're trying to move up and what job sectors and all of that. But even greater than that, even when it comes to, speaking of individualism, even when it comes to travel, you know what I'm saying? We're seeing in the travel, like, group trips are becoming less and less. And now everybody is a solo travel content creator. You know what I'm saying? They get a tripod, they get a camera, you know what I'm saying? They get an iPhone, and it's just like, well, I went to, Bali by myself, come with me, and not even just that, just dating overall. Like this whole movement of solo dating, come with me as I go to the movies by myself, come with me as like this whole movement of individualism, like and even in spirituality, we don't even have a need for community anymore. We don't even have, just how our parents were, where they would, work for the church and give the church their time and join groups in the church. Now we're streaming online, and now it's just like my spirituality is just me and God, and I come to church and I leave, and I don't even come to church. I just stream online. So it's just like our generation, we do have this push of, individuality in every aspect. So it almost concludes that we don't even have a community to pull from. Whereas our parents and our grandparents, like, they understood that community was necessary. Like, so for them, it was different. And I said this on TikTok, usually people who connect the dots, they are usually people that connect people. Like, they are just natural born connectors. They have the spirit of a host. You know what I'm saying? Those are people that will literally call you. You will call them and say, hey, yeah, I just got this job out in Arizona. And they would be like, okay, I have a third cousin who you could call. They are people that will go the distance to get you a connection for a job if you just graduated, or if you need some type of service done to your car. They are just natural born connectors. They are great at networking, and they are great at just putting people together. Those are your people that's right now getting ready to host Friendsgiving and Thanksgiving. They understand the power of community. They are really great at pulling on their resource of community. And usually there are people that's well connected in churches. They may have a big friend group. They may be in, fraternities and all of that. This guy that I used to work with a couple years ago, he had called me and he was like, oh man, I'm having a kickball game for my birthday. I want you to come out. And I was like, me? Kickball game? Like, do I actually have to kick the ball, or do you just want me to come and sing or something like that? By the way, I had a time of my life. But I would never forget when I got there, it was like a slew of people. It was a lot of his friends, and I still to this day, I was just always amazed at how many people showed up for his birthday just to play a kickball game. His friends, people from his fraternity, people from, his family. And I said to myself, I was like, I could never have that. Like that would never be me. You know what I'm saying? If I did do something like that, it would just be me and the ball. You know what I'm saying? But they are people that naturally have a community to pull from. You know what I'm saying? That same friend, he had called me one time. He was like, man, I just want to let you know I host Taco Tuesdays at my house. Like, you should come. And I was like, yeah, because I'm trying to get with your one friend. And he was like, yeah, man, those are people, they are great at hosting events. They are great connectors. You know what I'm saying? One of the concerns came up in the comments. People kept saying, well, I'm a connector and, but I just wouldn't, put my friends together because one time I tried that and it didn't go well. And if it don't go well, they're going to blame you. I do understand, like, a lot of people are very hesitant of, putting people together because they feel like, well, if it don't go well, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to be the blame. Because I think we do have to realize that, how your friends are in friendships could be totally different how they are in relationships. But I do believe that if you do decide to put your friends on with, like, I guess, a coworker or somebody that it is up to both parties as healthy communicating adults to do the work. To do their own vetting to see if this is a suitable match or not, and if it's not, if it's not, to back out and bow out as soon as possible. But I will say, if you are going to introduce your friends, investigate before you introduce. Investigate before you introduce. And the reason why I say this is because I think it is imperative that if you are trying to play matchmaker, or if you are a natural connector, or if you do want to put your friends on, talk to your friends. You know what I'm saying? Ask them what they're like. Just don't assume. And I also think one of the benefits of putting your friends on is just the trust is already there. The trust is already there for you. Listen, do you not know how ever since I started to go viral on social media about singleness and, I tell them my dating stories, there is usually always somebody in my DMs like, I know somebody that you would like. I know somebody. I know this girl. And it's just like, I don't know those people from Adam. You know what I'm saying? But the benefit of having your friend or your coworker or, people in your circle putting you on is the fact that you already trust them. I never forget years ago, I had asked this pastor, I think I was like 21, and I had asked this pastor, I was like, what are ways that you know that a prophetic word from God is real? Like, if somebody come to you and say, hey, the Lord said, like, what are ways that you know that that word is a true word from God? And I would never, ever forget what this pastor said. He said a few things, but one of the things he said, one of the ways that you know that something is from God, if somebody said it, he was like, yes, God can use anybody. Yes, God made the donkey talk and all. God used the donkey, all of that. He was like, but a lot of times it has a lot to do with how often you trust the person that is giving the word. Because in all wisdom, there's just certain people that God know not to come to me and say the Lord said, because you don't trust them. So, and I think that's the same way with, putting your friends on. If your friends trust you enough to communicate with you and to share their life with you, they will trust you enough to say, hey, like, Rick is a good dude. You should give him a chance. I want to make that connection, introduce y'all. And I think it also opens the door for y'all to have that conversation as friends, for you to know what your friends like. But I say all that to say there is a greater trust there if you look out for your single friends. Like, look out for your single friends, see who you know. But also I think there is a responsibility, not just on the connector, but on the ones that want to be connected. Because like I said, it all goes back to visibility. And that may look like if they invite you out, say yes. You know what I'm saying? Say yes. If they invite you out for a game night, or if they invite you out for, to hit up a live show, if they invite you to their church, you have a responsibility of, partaking in that community so that you can, because a lot of us, to be honest, we just don't have friends. A lot of, like I said, it goes back to individualism. A lot of people in our generation, like, we're just not that connected. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us are by ourselves. We don't really have that many friends. And lastly, I will say, and I said this on TikTok, like, I think putting your single friends on to other single people, are just, introducing your single friends. I think, in my opinion, it is one of the highest forms of affirming the friendship. Like, it is one of the highest forms of affirming the friendship, because if you know your friend is dope, and if you know your friend is a good person, and if you know your friend is husband material, wife material, like, why wouldn't you want to put them on? You know what I'm saying? Like, years ago, I was a part of my friend's wedding. in Atlanta. And I'll never forget, he had called me one day and he was like, yo, look at the wedding website. I put your information up. And so I goes to the website, and the way my friend spoke about me, like, I'm like, who is this dude? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, you know, who is this dude? Like, he was like, Mark is funny. Like, he's God-led. You know, he's the life of the party. You know, he's a good dude, da, da, da. And it's just like, to me, that was very affirming. You know what I'm saying? Even from guy to guy, like, that was very affirming. It's crazy because we don't even have that much in common. Like, we don't have that much in common other than the fact then that we're men and we like women. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude is a big sports dude. I'm not really big on sports. He's not really big into church. You know what I'm saying? He lives totally different life. He's married. He got kids. I'm not married. I don't have kids. But the binding force of our connection is integrity and the fact that we're both good people. You know what I'm saying? That's affirming. You know what I'm saying? But the fact that you would introduce your single friends to each other, that is a high form of affirming your friendship. Because I guarantee you, if you put your single friends on, if you introduce them to somebody that you know, they're not going to stop talking about it. Like, just imagine them at the wedding. They're going to toast to you and they're going to be so happy then. So in conclusion, to my married people and to the people that's already booed up, listen, we appreciate the invitations to your wedding, to your baby shower, to your kid's 5th birthday party, to your housewarming. We appreciate all the invitations, but we don't need any more invitations. We need introductions. Introduce us to somebody and do the work of the Lord. Yo, catch y'all in the next video.